Instead of like, I'm just going to go rest and best in some big company and do my 40 hours a week. That's not how I want to live my life. I want to go out and try new things and learn lessons and have things work and don't work. That's where I'm at. That's what I want.
You're listening to On Work, the show about tech professionals leaving the 9-to-5 and striking out on their own career paths. I'm Shaina, your host and founder of Hello Generalist. Listen in to meet the entrepreneurs, operators, and experts behind the independent career movement. They're building fractional careers, tech-enabled service businesses, working as creators, all in building portfolio lives. I hope you'll stay with us. Today, my guest is Jen Burton, a true legend in the startup customer support world. Today, she works as a fractional support leader with startups, but her background is one of those ridiculous ones that you sometimes stumble across on LinkedIn. Her first job out of college was doing support calls for Amazon while they still only sold books. Later, she started running community at Dig during the Dig and Reddit wars. Later, she took on the VP of community role at Fandom. And most recently, she was director of support at Digit. This was during their 2021 acquisition. In this episode, we talk about a bunch of things, including her transition to independent entrepreneurship after getting laid off. That includes how she prepared financially and how she booked first customers. She also shared some funny, not funny early mistakes that she made. Overall, Jen is just a delight to listen to. She laughs a lot. She makes me laugh a lot. And I know you'll enjoy listening to her. So with that, let's get into it. Why don't you jump right in and help me understand your career, your background? Mm-hmm. What have you been doing with your professional life?
I have this kind of accidental career as in customer support and operations leadership. I started working in customer service on the phones for Amazon the day after I graduated from college, and they only sold books. And all these years later, and y'all can do some math, I now have been really fortunate to move into leadership and to have worked across all kinds of different industries, really know that I love startups. That's my sweet spot. That's where I want to be. And so having had this multi-decade career, moving through startups at many different stages and through a couple exits, I know deep in my soul what gets me going and up to work and excited about what I'm going to be working on that day. And that is the challenge and excitement and bumpiness of Series A through Series C startups. I just love it. And so in these last decades, I've worked with e-commerce, user-generated content, SaaS, personal site many years ago. So my career now is, having moved into this fractional world, is my clients span many different industries, and the operational principles and needs, though, are almost always the same. And so I can bring that experience regardless of industry to the table for my clients.
Well, let's talk about that fractional work then, because you're like so many others who, realize in their career they've got a really deep skill set in this world of operations, and now are kind of bringing that skill to a broader set of customers. So, like, what do you do fractionally? What is it that you offer?
Yeah, so I get brought in most likely on customer operations, and depending on the size of the business, that expands out pretty quickly outside of customer experience and operations, right? Because at a Series A company, who are, working towards product market fit, or, trying to they've got a pretty solid idea of PMF, but now they got to bring folks in, right? We need an operations minds to come in and help maybe make things a little more efficient, put some processes in place. And I'm not talking Six Sigma here, right? Zero interest in that. But are there things that I can bring from my experience that I know and have used before that can help lighten some of this operational load? And what that ultimately does, right, is it gives engineers and founders time to go back and do, right? And less time spending trying to navigate and manage. And so, for example, a client brought in to do customer experience operations, did that. And then it was pretty clear as I started to expand what CX would need for this scaling business, pretty clear that operations support was needed elsewhere. So started working with them on the business ops side, brought in a marketing ops person to help manage tooling over there because that hadn't been managed. And it, it's just one of those things that like brought up in, right? Operations is horizontal across all organizations, and words may be different. Some tools might be different, but the fundamentals to me are the same.
Yeah. And you're really describing this situation inside a company of where someone like you comes in. It's like there's a product, there are customers, there's a growing internal team of people that are building and selling it. I imagine some sort of inflection point exists inside these companies where like the stuff's on fire, customers are angry or overwhelmingly happy, and there's a volume of business that needs to be done post sale. Can you talk about like why are people bringing you in? What's that inflection point to come in?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, sometimes, a lot of times it has to happen after something painful happened, right? There was a seasonality issue popped up and no one was prepared, or, maybe there had been sort of a communications issue. You start out your seed, you may be series A, and you're like, I've got this. My founding team and I are answering all the emails. We have to know this stuff. We got it. And that's the right way to start. It is not sustainable and you can't grow that way. And so they bring someone like me in at the point of like, I don't know what's going on with the customers. All I know is that our ratings are down. All I know is that my CS team is buried. I'm confused and frustrated. And then it's like, okay, cool. This is what we can do. Really, I got to dig in and understand where they're hurting, right? And so in the situations like this, they say, this is what's going on. And, I find out where the pain points are. I find out who they want to be. Like, what do you want to be in your customer service? How do you want your brand to be represented externally, right? And then we got to talk things like, budget and all that stuff, right? So we get there. And when I come in on an engagement, I have a sense of priorities. I have a sense of like where the pain points are relative to others and what are we going to work on. And then it's get down to it, right? This is not a situation where like, oh, I joined this company as a full-time employee and I get 60 days to prove my worth. No, like, that's not how we roll. And I don't want to do that anyway, right? And fractional, not only am I'm contributing and partnering in strategic work around the business, and then I'm also executing. And I love that. But I have the opportunity to meet with and talk with founders who have less life experience than me, straight up, and therefore less business experience. I was talking to a founder, and we were having coffee, and he was struggling with go-to-market. And we were talking, I said, you're an engineer, and you all look at problems and solve them in bits and bytes. You're all zeros and ones. Your ops folks are over here handling anxiety of your customers, of your teammates. We're here to soothe them and support them, right? So, and he kind of had this moment of like, oh, like he'd never thought about it in those terms before.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
So
yeah. And it's like, yeah, of course. I don't know. I speak for myself. I get used to seeing the world through my eyes. And so I expect the whole world to be that way. And that's just not how it works. So it's just those moments of like, through my experience, not only professionally, but personally, help open a door, even a crack, and then have an impact on the business that way as well.
You're describing one of the like non-obvious benefits to hiring fractionally, which is the difference between your goals with a full-time employee, which is long-term retention and long-term performance with that employee, where you've made a big investment in recruiting them and hiring them. The non-obvious benefit with fractional is that often the expectation and part of what you're getting is a much quicker, more immediate result. The trade-off with a full-time employee, perhaps you're hiring somebody who is newer to the industry or to the situation that you're in, compared to a fractional who is a pinpoint expert, and the expectation to drop in and go faster. But the question we get all the time is, okay, sounds amazing, but like, how do you do that? How are you able to do all this stuff
Yeah.
part-time where the way the world has mostly worked is that it's been a full-time thing?
Yeah.
So how does this
Yeah.
work?
I'm being paid for my experience, not my time. And I have the benefit of all of these years of understanding. I can pretty quickly say what's the 80-20 here, right? What is going to get us 80% for 20% of the effort? And that's just years of experience. That's trial and error. That's huge mistakes. That's lost time, lost money. It's all of those things. And it's also examples of success. Oh, this one worked, and I can repeat this success. And so now I get to take that to clients and say, hey, so can I come in a very short amount of time and get you set up for success? Can I get you set up so that you can bring in a manager level person or maybe a director level person and go long term, but with a really solid foundation? And foundations are hard. They're actually really hard. And we're in situations with Series A and Series B. Money's not flowing, right? Budget matters. And so can I come in a little bit less than the cost of an experienced full-time leader and do in half that time what that experienced full-time leader will they would need to be doing to build a foundation. And I can also, when it's time to bring that person onboard them and train them and show them what we've done and where we're going. And my job is to set people up for success, whether that be people I'm working directly with or sitting next to, or an entire company I've been brought on to work with. I'm here to help people be successful.
Yeah. Is there a story or two that maybe stands out that would really ground this? Like, to whatever extent you're able to talk
Sure.
about clients you have or a situation they were in.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe there's something that like a founder out there is listening to, or a fellow fractional is trying to orient themselves around, but they can put themselves in your shoes and say, yes, okay, this is how Jen was able to come in, orient a problem and resolve it part-time.
So very commonly, folks set up a customer experience workflow or tooling or tech stack who don't have customer service experience, right? With the best intentions and with the this is what makes most sense to me, and things don't go well. They're wasting money on tools they don't need or are not using, and the energy of that founding team needs to be spent elsewhere. So they may bring in then a customer service agent and be like, off you go. And so I come into this a lot, and it's one of the very first things is like, okay, where are we with tools? I mostly unravel Zendesk instances. And then also I think folks don't know the power of some of these tools. Like they're like, we don't know what anyone's saying. So here's an example. I joined on as a fractional at this company and really within weeks drastically simplified their customer service experience. No one could understand it. Customers, engineers, CS agents, none of us could understand it. Simplified it. And that then gave us space to expand the population we were supporting. So now we were supporting customers that previously, like our go-to-market team was dealing individually with via email. And they had never tracked any of this, right? Because if 5 people are on a mailing list and no one's paying attention to repeatable issues, or that one person who has a very low lifetime value but takes up a lot of time, we know these folks. So I brought them in. I moved them all over to Zendesk. And within a week and a half of collecting data on one of these campaigns, we were able to make a product change based on just a week and a half worth of data that had not been surfaced, because it was, people were just trying to tread water, keeping up with their email inboxes and supporting these customers. But once we were able to get them into Zendesk and start tracking and launch a help center with trackable data, right? So for me, I really bring in this intensity around, like, we have so much information, we're not using it. And it works. Pretty soon, founders and PMs and all of us in these businesses were like, oh my God, now I know I have more info. Like, how cool is this that we can make this change? I mean, when we made this product change based on a week's worth of email, and it was like, oh, wow, okay. So that's the sort of stuff that I really bring in. there's a million tools out there that are so cool. So how can we pick one or two and use them to free up our brains and our frustrations and our anxieties so that we can go work on, forward looking problems and challenges.
This episode is brought to you by Hello Generalist, where the startup community turns for fractional operations hiring, from fractional chiefs of staff and part-time COOs to data leads, recruiters, finance people, and so much more. Our pre-vetted US-based operations pros built their careers inside of high-growth startups and are now available for part-time contract hiring. So that means those people who used to cost you $180K and take 4 months to hire now cost you half and can start next week. These are people like Emily, who built community growth for The Wing and Rent the Runway, or Elliot, a 3-time startup chief of staff, or like Chris, a veteran startup CFO who's raised tens of millions in venture capital. Yep, they are all available for part-time hiring. Visit hellogeneralist.com to learn more. Tell me, Jen, why did you decide to go fractional in the first place?
Sure.
Like you had a really successful full-time career. You're doing great.
Yeah.
So what was the inflection point? Why did you make the jump?
Well, several years ago, I started to think about it and I didn't have the confidence to do it. It's like, I need to have, a steady stream of income. And it was really a personal confidence thing. And, do I have value? Would anyone hire me? And, over the years, I have done a lot of work around like, no, I have value and I'm really good at what I do. I was working at a place called Digit, loved Digit, incredible startup, one of the best cultures I've ever been a part of. And we were ultimately acquired by a large to me anyway, public financial institution. Ooh, I did not like it. I didn't fit. They didn't fit me. I was like, I would have never chosen you. And I'm sure they're like, we would have never chosen her. And so, and I was running customer support for the whole, all of digital customer support for the business. So, 1 million contacts a year and all this stuff. And I was really in this place of like, well, your customer service, here are your KPIs, and that's what you need to manage too. And you don't get to make tooling suggestions or changes, and it was miserable. And fortunately, after the 3rd round of layoffs, I got laid off, and they moved all of customer service to Mexico. And I was able to take some time off and just really sat back and grounded myself of like, you would not have chosen that company. That is not where you want to work. And you don't, and it's okay if you don't fit there. Not everyone has to want to work with me. I don't want to work with everyone. And so I took some time and I was looking for full-time jobs. And at the same time, I was getting my gig going, right? I was reaching out, I was writing content on LinkedIn and going to events and really just building this concept of me being a fractional and a consultant, right? Instead of me being an unemployed tech worker. It's such a different vibe. It is such a different vibe, right? And
important.
Yeah, because it was in this, I was in this position where like I'm at the, I'm at the mercy of the tech gods. And it's like, no, you're not. There are no tech gods, but also, no, this is a life I'm going to choose to move towards. I do really well in a Series C, Series D. But at this point in my career, that's not what I want. I don't want to work for anyone. I don't want to, I don't want to put in a 70-hour work week ever again. So I want to enjoy a lot of what I've earned over the last multiple decades, right? This is all it's also a lifestyle choice. It's a big lifestyle choice for me.
And it's pretty amazing that you came to that through this moment that for so many people is like the worst professional moment ever, which is you get laid off. You're in a job that at some point you were enjoying and having fun with, but you took that and you really used that as this launch point just to look inside and say, oh man, okay, well, I didn't actually want that. And also what is on the other side of all this discomfort. And it's interesting too. I imagine with the layoff you money wise and to talk money for a minute, you probably had some sort of severance or some sort of packages you were laid
Hmm.
off. So that
Hmm.
helps with this
Yep.
transition. But early on, how did you go from I get a paycheck in my account deposited to now I have no paycheck. And if I'm going to get paid again, I got to go find it. What was the money transition like for you?
Well, I will tell you, I am still rebuilding savings.
Yeah, really
That's real.
practical and really true. Yeah.
It's real. I in the beginning I went out and I spent a bunch of money on like going to conferences and at that point I realized there's no ROI for me here. This particular conference is not decision makers. It is peers, and I need to be at the conferences with decision makers. And so that was a moment of like, where am I spending my money here? And then other things like subscription services, bye, like, cool software, don't need it. But I kept going to um, software breakfasts, right? Like Zendesk has like a women in AI breakfast. I was there. I scored a client out of that
Cool.
5 months later, right? When I was at that breakfast, I remember this person. We clearly, like you go to a million breakfasts, you don't remember everyone. And I remembered her. And so when she reached out many months later, I was like, oh yeah, cool. What do you got? And we talked about it. And now I'm doing some work for them. And that doesn't mean I'm not discerning. That doesn't mean I say yes to everyone who knocks on my door, because I don't. Like, for example, I used to have on my website, you used to be able to just book time with me. And I took that down. As much as I would love to get every startup who asks on the phone and say, yeah, I'll give you feedback on your software. Like, I can't do that. I don't have this time for it. And it's actually worth a lot of money.
Reading through the lines of what you're saying, it's like, yeah, getting started, I burned some cash savings and I've learned
Yes.
some lessons about how
Yes.
to use my time and sell my time, like spend my money to get in the right doors, learn lessons
Yes.
there.
Yes.
But on the whole, what's so amazing is that on the other side, it's like, and I walk away from that experience gladly saying no now to the wrong opportunities,
Yes.
building that savings back up more slowly than I would be with a full-time job, but happy with the trade-offs that
Yeah,
brings.
totally. I mean, I'm happy with the quality of my days. I'm happy that I can go see my personal trainer at 2 o'clock on a Thursday.
Shout
you
out,
know?
100%, 100%.
um, Not too long ago, I had a founder reach out and said, hey, check out this cool software I'm working on, and I'd like to get some time with you. And I was like, yeah, it's really cool. Are you looking for a demo or are you looking for advising? And she said advising. And I said, okay, here's my rate. And she was like, I can't afford it. I was like, okay, cool. That came out of an experience. I said sure to someone, yeah, sure, I'll do 30 minutes free. And this guy gets on the demo, and his whole demo was like 5 black and white slides with text. And he was basically just trying to reinvent Zendesk. And I ended it quick. I'm like, I have nothing to offer you here. And so that's when I was like, I'm not doing this for free ever again.
It's very reasonable. Like to your point, an hour, 2 hours of paid time with you is worth the investment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I don't have some favorites who I do spend time with and don't charge for my time, but I really enjoy them as people too. So
Now that you're working independently, you've got fractional work you do, you're referencing advising work you do, you're referencing consulting work you do. I imagine that's all in under this umbrella of CX and post-sale operations and customer support. Beyond that work, do you have other income streams that you're pursuing? Is there a portfolio behind the scenes here?
yeah, I have some business partnerships that are kind of like a little biz devy. When I can bring them clients and then I get a percentage of that deal if they sign. I introduce folks and they make a deal, and I get, for a period of time, I get a percentage of that gross. So that's another kind of part of what I do on the side. There is that kind of the BD stuff for some other businesses that I like and believe in.
That's cool. That's one I haven't, people don't talk about a lot are these kind of referral BD partnerships.
Hmm.
And like
Hmm.
it's a perfect adjacency to where you spend all your time anyway,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
embedded with all these teams. So
it's
smart.
great. because a client will reach out and say, hey, I need this. And I'm like, oh, I've got someone. And it's someone that I've met with and know. It's not someone that I've just like picked up, scanned their QR code at a conference, right? It's people that I have a relationship with and trust because my name is on this as much as theirs, right? If I'm introducing a client to an agency or a software company and putting my name behind it, I have to believe and trust them. It's not just about like, oh, I'm going to get money from this. It's like, no, actually, this is part of relationship building. And that matters to me. That matters to me a lot.
Jen, how did you get this first client? Like maybe you could tell us the story of the first person who was going to pay you for this.
Yeah, I have been really fortunate over the years to be a part of the old Zendesk Startups Community Program. And I spoke for them and I would a volunteer coach for some of their startups. So one of the guys I had who had actually heard me, he was from Europe, he was a sales exec, and he heard me on a panel, I think at like a TechCrunch Disrupt a couple years ago. And, he introduced himself and, we're like, hey, we hit it off. And so then he hits me up on LinkedIn. He says, hey, I've got one of our Zendesk clients is in this situation. And, they need someone like you to come in and either train their existing leadership or help them hire new leadership. And so he's like, okay, let's put together this proposal and I want to pay you for it. So, I was like, okay, cool. Set up my rate and build him out this amazing proposal and send it over. And he wrote back and he was kind of like, hey, this doesn't have really what we need on an invoice. It was like a rookie invoice mistake. And so I went back and I created a new invoice and then I never sent it. So like I had my first paycheck waiting for me and I actually never got it because I forgot. And then I felt weird like 3 months later. Oh, hey, FYI, I never got this, So now it gets to just be my funny story about like my first paid gig. And I left that money on the table. It wasn't an insane amount of money. And actually it's worth the lesson. Like we get to get lessons everywhere we look, whether there's money involved or not. And and it's like, okay, cool. Now I know I'm much more organized with invoicing now. I know what they all need to have. I know to get my W-9 over there, like all that stuff. So that was my first paid client.
You're right that it's like a sad, funny story. It's like, oh, like that's a lesson right there. But what I love about the story is that it's got like the patterns are there of most people's first customers, which is like pattern number one, it came from people you already know, first or second degree connection. Mm-hmm. And two, you just got to doing it. You just got to do it. Not trying to necessarily sell some big pre-prepared package, learned as you went. And that's another, I think, a pattern that a lot of new fractionals are fearful of. There's a desire to be overly prepared or a desire to have all your invoicing software lined up from day one instead of going into it with curiosity and great intentions and the knowledge that you will figure it out. And also you will figure it out through learning some lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. My first RFPs, they're just straight up documents. There's nothing pretty or cute about them, but they nailed it. They got what it needed. And now I'm like, okay, I have a logo now and I'm kind of bringing them, making them a little zhuzh, but it doesn't matter. I've gotten plenty of clients with plain bullet point lists of like, this is the deliverables and here's how much it's going to cost. Right. And so it is those things too, like you said, it's just getting in and getting going, and don't let this sense of like, oh, if I'm not visually, my brand isn't up here, or I don't have this many followers on LinkedIn, like I can't do this. No, actually just go. And I had a call yesterday with a woman who reached out from another fractionals community who is new. And I could hear her just saying all these reasons why she can't do this. And it was just like, no, all it takes is one, and just one step forward. I was a competitive soccer player, and when I was 13 years old, I was the youngest player ever on the Washington State Olympic Development soccer team. I was a goalkeeper.
Whoa.
So I was 13. I'm playing against all these 15 and 16-year-olds, and we were playing Idaho or, some sort of tournament to see who gets to go on to the next level. And I messed up and we got scored on and we lost. And I just remember just standing there with the coach. His name was Dan Henry. Shout out Dan Henry, wherever you are. And I was like, because this has stayed with me and has impacted my entire life and my whole career. I was like, I'm terrible. I messed up and we lost. And he goes, If no one made a mistake in soccer, it would be a very boring game. Okay. And then I eventually had a coach in college who said, you know what, Jen, like every goal that gets scored on you is not your fault. There's a whole team here. There was a gap somewhere. And so those lessons really helped me move into a leadership position where it's like, I can sit down with folks to be like, let's give this a shot. And if it doesn't work, cool. We'll do something different or we'll go back, but like, let's give it a shot. And so that's also been something that's really helpful for me at this point in my life and my career. Instead of like, I'm just going to go rest and vest in some big company and do my 40 hours a week and, clock in, clock out. Like I could do that. Sure. But it's not how I want to live my life. I want to go out and try new things and learn lessons and have things work and don't work. That's where I'm at. That's what I want,
That's a beautiful story. Well, Jen, for listeners out there, for founders who might want to get in touch with you, for other fractionals who are inspired by you and want to follow along, like where can people find you online?
LinkedIn, Jen Burton, at jenburton.me. You can go to upperwriters.com, but my S Corp is Upper Writers, as in we're moving up into the right, everything we do. I'm out there and available. Would love to meet folks.
Jen, thank you so much for your time today. I learned a ton. I know people listening and will learn a ton too. Listen to more episodes of On Work in all the places you get your podcasts, and subscribe to us on Substack, YouTube, and LinkedIn to get updates right into your feeds. Thank you again to today's sponsors. Till next time, I'm Shaina, and this has been the On Work podcast.